all, I'm just going to subscribe to this channel. Basically, I was sent this video today, and Gillian's with me. Hi, Gillian.
Hi.
Gillian's with me because we're very into Tartaria as well. I know it's a different subject to some of the other videos, but this is the channel. It was called Mine Unveiled, and what it is that he's found this map, and he's putting together that maybe America was run by Tartarians. And basically, I think what he's trying to say is Independence Day wasn't about being independent from Britain. It was about it being independent from the Tartarians. And he's found this part of a map. And when you look at the map, there are towns and cities on here, and they've got castles in. What's your thoughts on that, Gillian?
Well, yeah, but isn't he saying, like the British weren't the Tartarians?
No.
Local...
We, you and the Americans and us got them out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's his thoughts, and we'll play little bits of his video because I don't think he'll mind just if we play a few bits, because obviously we're reporting on this guy's work, and yeah, I was a bit shocked when I saw that today, because you know, you do find these old maps, and what he's basically saying is all the maps he's found, the old ones, have got words like Tartar and this in it, so he's pretty convinced that there was another, and of course America's full of pillared buildings, just like we are. We were all under Tartaria. Why couldn't they tell us the truth that maybe in that time it was Napoleon and they were fighting the Tartarians? Remember, Napoleon was on the go as well. That's why they said everybody wanted to go to America.
Well, maybe when you're the bad guys and you wipe out the good guys, you don't want everybody to know.
Oh, well...
Yeah. Why else would you keep it a secret? Otherwise, you would brag about your endeavour. We killed the enemy, the bad guys.
Yeah, well anyway, so he found these maps.
And I find this to be very relevant because you're seeing Democrats actively trying to destroy the Constitution, and with the Green New Deal, they want to destroy many of these old Tartarian buildings. I mentioned that in my last video, and many seem to not really understand why the Constitution is so important and what makes it special. In this video, I want to present a thesis that will explain how the Constitution of the United States could be a Tartarian document from a past age that created the most beautiful system in which the people had control over the government. You've heard me mention that many US cities were not founded on the dates that we are taught in history books and all that. These buildings are much older than we are led to believe, and we have a lot of evidence to support this. So we have this legend of this legendary town called Norumbega. And supposedly, it was this empire that was in North America before the history books teach us, and they don't really teach about this. It's supposedly just a legend. But what we have is this map from the 1540s that shows castles and European settlements in America, and this doesn't really fit the narrative. This is from 1540. So what are these buildings?
I myself have gone and looked up this map, looked up information, and I've come across this map. I just want to show you that it's for sale and what it's worth, and the map was made in 1597. Anyway, sorry Gillian. Gillian was explaining it, and then I realised the recorder wasn't on properly. So, you said you watched a video about a year ago.
Yeah, we were talking about, you know, names being changed, and it's like they hide the past, they rewrite it, and write themselves out of history and sort of merge it into the local stories. But anyway, this lady came from New Zealand, and she was blonde hair, blue-eyed, white-skinned, and she came from a race of people, I can't remember what they were, but she'd come out because she was one of the few left of her race, and she wanted to show that they weren't fairies, because that's how they've been written down now, that these people, it was just a folklore and they never existed. And her story was that they'd come from America, somewhere over there, they stopped in at Easter Island, and then arrived down at, and her family were, like her relatives that came, were like elite sort of from where they'd come from, like they were escaping some collapse or some catastrophe, and they married their daughters to the kings of the local New Zealand tribes and merged together, but it didn't. So her people sort of separated, and they sort of just got bred out. That was her story. So it just seems what they seem to do is just write everything down as a fairy tale, slightly change it as in enough time, and then they don't let the people contest it. That
only have
prove that it's wrong.
Sorry, carry on.
It doesn't.
We only have.
It doesn't make it into history. They just give us their version that they want us to have. So that was.
What's our history though to America? That we basically went over there in the late 1700s, and that's when it started. But it didn't. These maps were made in the 1500s. These maps were made 200 years before. There was towns and cities there.
Well, that was one of the versions that we listened to about Tartaria, was how it split in two. One group didn't want to live the way that it had been, designed to live. And so maybe they're the fraction that then went down to the bottom of Europe. Because like you said, the French, Germany, Swiss, they all had big important roles in history. Even those, the other ones, Portugal and Spain. It's like they moved their headquarters and used each population to do things. And then they went to England, it seems. And England went and took over everything. Came to Australia, America, India.
Well, maybe that was part of something else. They've only said, because I have a problem with that, because we talked about this the other day, that the Ottoman Empire was there at the same time Tartaria was there.
Yeah.
You can't have both, because the Ottoman Empire went into the Tartaria area, and then that Tartaria didn't finish the Ottoman Empire till 1920. I think it was 1923. It might have been 1925. But you can't have the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire must have been Tartaria.
Well, didn't he say Tartaria split into 5 different fractions in the beginning or something? So maybe the Ottoman became one fraction. Because Tartaria wasn't one race of people, it was every kind of people.
He does say in here that the people were in charge of the government here in Tartaria time. That's what he says. This was an amazing time and place.
So it sounds like you had this like community rule versus royalty rulership. Emperors, czars, and so. But I don't know. That original one we heard of Tartaria, it sounded like they were the one that had the czar, the rulers, the kings and stuff. So I don't know.
Maybe that's. But you know what? At the same time, the Tsar looks just like Queen Victoria's grandson, and he became King of England, and he was playing the Tsar of Russia. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's because I told you, I've got a video, I've never played it, where it's supposed to be the coronation of him. And when you look at it, there's different animals there, and there's animals and all sorts of things. It's like they've put something over the top of the film and pretended it's something else, like the coronation of the king. It's all weird, it's just weird. I've never put it out because I only meant to talk for 5 minutes, and I talk for an hour and a half. And then you've got to be really into it because it's all blurry. And then you've got to be into it, and you've got to look at it and realise that you're looking at something different. And if you don't see it. It's just, oh, what a load of rubbish. So I never put it out because it's like looking at the Watts case again, when you're looking at the shadows and you're going, you've got to get really into it to see it. And if you don't notice it. That's the way it goes, I think. But should we play a tiny bit more of this guy's video then?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we are led to believe, and we have a lot of evidence to support this. So we have this legend of this legendary town called Norumbega. And supposedly it was this empire that was in North America before the history books teach us, and they don't really teach about this. It's supposedly just a legend. But what we have is this map from the 1540s that shows castles and European settlements in America, and this doesn't really fit the narrative. This is from 1540. So what are these buildings? So, and also there's parts of this map that are missing. We only have some fragments left.
what it is we're just trying to report. We're looking at it ourselves. Me and Gillian are really into Tartaria. So I do advise, I'll put the link to this video in that you can go and watch the whole thing. He's done a very, very interesting part because he's talking about...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what do you make of the Nuremberg part, Gillian?
Which bit was that?
Nuremberg. Yeah, that basically, that's well parted. Let's just move it on a little bit. Right, there you go. Well, there's tells you about Nuremberg, and it says, I'll read it. It says, "Is a legendary settlement in Northern America, was featured on many early maps from the 1500s until European colonization of the region. It was alleged that the houses had pillars of gold, and the inhabitants carried quartz of pearls on their heads. The word Nuremberg," it's got an A at the end, "was originally spelled Oremberger in whatever that is, I'm sorry, in 1529 map of America, and the word is believed to derive from one of the, oh my god, Algonquin, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, the words are too long, you can read the word there, language is spoken in New England. It may mean quiet place between the rapids or quiet stretch of water. 1542, then Jean...
So hang on, where's New England? Is that America?
Yeah,
New England?
Is that Canada?
So they had their own language.
Oh, hang on,
Okay.
New England. No, we're getting to that bit. Wait a minute. Let me read this bit. Oh, Newfoundland. That's Canada. I think it
You
might.
just said they spoke in a language that you couldn't even pronounce then.
Yeah, Algonquin language is spoken in England. It may mean quiet place between the rapids, quiet stretch of water. In 1542, Jean Alphonse, I think that's what that is, reported that he had coasted south from Newfoundland, which is Canada, and had discovered a great river. It often appeared on subsequent European maps of North America, lying from Acadia in what is now called New England. It does carry on, but then it goes into the 18th century.
Might be Acadia.
That's it. I said Arcadia, didn't I? What did I say?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, Arcadia. Sorry. I'm sorry. It's like looking... I hate reading, actually. You should be reading, Gillian. You read that video very well, your video. But it's just very interesting that I felt that it's got to be right somewhere along the line, because there's loads of pillared buildings in America, like there's pillared buildings here, like there's pillared buildings in Australia, like there's pillared buildings all over Europe. It's got to be the same people, and they look very Roman-like with the pillars on them. Anyway, let's just whiz on through his video a little bit. Oh, he's looking down. He's gone back to the map, and then he's talking about buildings that they're much older than they've told us that they are, which is obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so we're just going. So in his video, he's saying that these towns and these houses come from a different era, and they're much older than they've told us that they are, which makes sense, doesn't it? And then, of course, he's looking through more maps that are really, really old. Tartars, they're called. Tartars. That's what they've been called. So everybody hopefully can read that. I'm going to leave people to read what's up there. It's better than me reading it. So we're going through his video because, obviously, so we go on a bit. So he's talking... Oh, now we're on to the uniforms. So that's something I found, is that we found the uniforms, but what this guy's saying is the uniforms are very similar, and it's supposed to be the British and the American, and also they've got the same kind of tools, the same kind of guns and instruments. So that would make sense, because what he's saying is all of us were fighting them. That's what it is. I mean, I did try to look it up myself. I didn't do so well, but obviously he's found a bit, you know, he's been looking at old maps and things, and then he's put his video together. But it seems that we weren't fighting each other, and that might be where Napoleon comes in and everything. We were fighting them. Or these, well...
Yeah, well, that's what he's suggesting, isn't he? Yes.
That's what he's suggesting, yeah. So I thought that was extremely interesting. And then, so basically looking at the uniforms, all the same, just whizzing through the video. So he's basically saying that oh no, I might, should we play it? This bit I think I'd like to just put a couple of moments of his video in, because he explains it so well.
The idea is that we have these old world type of uniforms, right? These militia type units, and then we have this new world where they have these, you know, extravagant European uniforms that all look the same. So, it begs the question, was Tartaria in America, and were they the foundation of America? You know, the Europeans seem like they're just following orders, but these Tartarians seem like these are just people. These are people forming militias and protecting their state. So, who are the real foreign parasites, and who were the ones who were here first? You see the same old type of stuff with these European, I mean, the USA and France look literally just the same. They have the same stuff on their heads. It's, you know, it's the same people. And here's a really interesting piece of the puzzle. So you also have like leftover architectures or leftover towers.
So then he's talking about this Nuremberg tower. So it's put in the 1800s, but he thinks it's a lot older, and that this is stuff from before, which they've now covered up with the dates. And I'm sorry, there's too many long words in there. You can read that yourself. Okay. So it's with the tower there. So that's the kind of thing that got left, but they don't come from now. They come from the Tartarian time in America. That's very interesting, isn't it? Because if you sense, they never want us to go back that far, do they? That America was started in the there was a whole people there in the 1500s.
Well, history officially only starts in around the 1500s. Recorded history, there's not much before that. It's all gone. Why is it all gone? Where did it all go? They say because there wasn't really anything to record, and nobody, you know, was actually recording the history. But hey, so I think.
Well, they've covered it up, haven't they? And it just seems that, you know, I think that I now think that Napoleon, because it just seemed that they were everybody was trying in the history. Everybody's trying to get away from Napoleon, but that's not true. He was obviously fighting them.
Well, I think a lot of our history is a repeat story. And they've added that 1,000 years into the history, and this is probably the era around when they did it. That 1,000 years of the Dark Ages or whatever. That was just before, like, the 1500s, wasn't it? The Dark Ages?
Well, we've got a few ages that look a bit weird. Oh, another thing he said was that he looked up the houses, and a lot of the houses look European. That's what he's saying on the video. Let's move it on a bit.
He brings up lots of really good points. It's definitely worth.
Yeah, it's worth looking at the video. We're just going through it. But no matter when he's looking, he can find in these maps Tartar and words like that in the old. These are old maps. Let's move it on a little bit. Yeah, so
yeah, when you start to have a look yourself, bring up these maps, you know, and have a look at them yourself. They're not fantasy. I mean, they're not easy to make maps.
No, and they're covering like the whole of America.
Yeah, and too much of it's accurate for it just to be something some rich person got somebody to make up.
But there's a whole...
For a hope, you know that?
There's a whole civilization that's happened. And then he goes on to... He's got dates here of 1570. It's just... we're just copying his video. But But anyway, oh look, it's even got Greenland. That's 1600s there, that one. That's one I put on my video the other day. Let's move it on a little bit.
Well, there is this huge before and after theme. It's everywhere.
Oh yeah, what was your bit about? Because in these maps, they're showing that California is an island.
Yes, I've seen that one before.
And what was your take on that, Gillian?
Well, I don't know. Either a disaster happened, or again, because I think they had just as good a technology then as we do now. They must have done maybe some sand mining, and they made a bridge so the island wasn't so hard to get to for some reason.
In the old maps, in the 1500s, 1600s, California was an island.
Yes, and today's reasoning is that they just didn't map it very well, apparently, or something like that.
No, and they're talking about, the Andrea's fault, aren't they? And that could chop up California off and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there may have been a natural disaster, or if you add technology back into that era, then they could have done what we did now. We sand mining. We make islands and stuff all over the place. See the buildings that they built, so we know that technology.
Well, they must have done, because they built buildings that we can't even build today.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's a little bit of writing here. All to do back in the 16th century, which is not really... Who talks about this at school and stuff? No one talks about this, do they?
What would be interesting would be to look at the history just before the Dark Ages and the history just as the Dark Ages ended and it started to come back, and try to merge those two together, chop out that missing era and just go straight from then to now. I think it would be easier to make sense of. Just remove those.
This map I'm showing here, Gillian, it's got Nuremberg, New England's lost city of riches and Vikings.
Yeah, like what was happening in the world before those 1,000 years of darkness, because basically there was no 1,000 years, so it just went from that to whatever happened 400 years ago.
That's the end of it. So, in this bit, he's talking about this. He saw kings decorated with rubies 6 inches long, and they were born of chains of silver and crystal, adorned with precious stones. He saw pearls as common as pebbles, and the natives were laden down by their ornaments of gold and silver. The city of Bega was 3/4 of a mile long and had streets wider than that of London. Some houses had massive pillars of crystal and silver. Do you know what? I've asked this question repeatedly, and I even asked it to Marie Wheatley when we were out at the Stones. I said, I know, because even though we're talking about, they were far more advanced than we were, but they've got stones out in fields. And I said, were these something else? And they've petrified into stone. Do you think that the pillars and these things, they might have been crystals and that? Buildings were quite crystal-like, and then they've petrified into stone.
Well, what if this utopia wasn't really a utopia? And whilst it looks beautiful to come across these, crystal palaces and emerald pillars and things, what if the landscape around it has been mined to the heck? So there's nothing living, to get all those resources, it takes a lot. So maybe from one point of view it looks beautiful, but from another point of view, this is extreme decadence.
But they were peaceful, these people. They lived in harmony. The governments worked for them, not them for the governments.
Well, no wonder they had emerald bloody pillars. What was everybody else doing? Living in the desert land?
But that means that we would have been the same. All the places that had Tartaria would have been the same. I mean, I actually put down, was Tartaria a very good time for us? But in these documents, it looks like it was.
Yeah, but that's what you would do, our ruling elite do for today. If you had a look at today's society, you'd think it was wonderful. But there's still people starving and getting shot in wars. And
I did tell you something else as well. Do you remember I said that I found people do remember the video when I showed like people wearing suits and that in the 1800s, but the black people in it, their suits were all pressed and they were smiling, whereas the white people looked miserable. They looked like, well, they looked like somebody had shoved something up there, and then they'd gone smile to the camera and they'd gone, ugh. You know, the white people, they look like they're slaves, to be honest. The white people look more like slaves and stuff like that, and it looked the other way around. It looked like the black people were had more.
I did ask my mum why they didn't smile in the black and white photo era, and she said because you were supposed to look natural.
No, it's very unnatural, the looks that they look so sad, really.
Yeah, and like, yeah, would you be pleased with that portrait? My God, no wonder no one wanted a portrait done. It's like having a mugshot now for your license. You're not allowed to. You used to be allowed to smile, but you're not allowed to smile anymore.
Anyway, me and Gillian have just done this little video to show you that, after all, and he's thinking America is also a big place where there was Tartaria even before Europe. I don't know about that, but we've all got pillars, buildings, we've all got pyramids and stuff like that, so we must have all been one at one point.
Well, Tartaria on that map, it does have America as part of Tartaria. Same as like England, like Australia's a part of England, used to be, sort of. So maybe they heard what rule was going on over there and they went, yeah, we want that over here. We'll become a part of that, like it. United Nations, dare I say it.
Maybe what they've done is they've changed history, and because we can't go, because you know it's like the Mandela thing, so they've changed it, so no one's around from 200-300 years ago to say, oh, that's not right, that's not how it happened. So they've just lied, and they always say the winners always change the history. They're never going to let you know. Why couldn't they just told us the truth? Would it have made any difference to us if we'd realised? I mean, in one sense, I don't think our world is as old as they say it is. But why not just tell us the truth? Because these people were here first. Why didn't they just tell us the truth?
Well, yeah, that's what makes you wonder if they're the good, you know, which, if there are any good guys, like, I don't know. It seems hard to imagine a society without some kind. Even in a family unit, the parents lead the way. You know, in a town, you've got to have organisation to know how much food to grow, whether to build building houses. Just the basic stuff. You have to have some kind of organisation. Otherwise, you're just at the mercy of nature.
But we think that we're so advanced right now, and we're you know, like we've never been this advanced. They're pretending that we're going to the moon and all that crap, when actually these people were a lot more advanced.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were more advanced. Maybe you were. Well, yes, they had access to.
Well, there's a lot of maps made around the 15 and 1600s. And I mean, if we were as poor as they said, how come these people could make all these maps? And like you said, it's not that easy to make a map.
No, and the quality of things is decreasing instead of increasing. So maybe that's what I think it is. I think it's because they remove information and then you slowly decline. It's like now we still have tribes that aren't in the modern world, don't have toilets, you know, don't have running water, blah blah blah, still surviving. But so yeah, we're apparently got all this great technology, but big chunks of the world are still way behind. So why wouldn't it be the same back then?
Anyway, me and Gillian just wanted to bring your attention to this video. We found it very interesting because obviously we're into Tartaria. Yeah. His name for the channel is called Mine Unveiled, and yeah, that's the name of the video. And thanks for listening to me and Gillian just talk about it a little bit. We're the reporters, aren't we?
Well, I liked what he said about the uniforms. You know, the American uniforms were very close to the British uniforms.
Maybe
Because
that's
I'm
why
not
we went to
American, I don't know
America.
that.
Maybe we went and hunted them out. Don't forget, New York was called New Amsterdam because the Dutch got there first, and then when we turned up years later, then we started arguing, and we were going, well, if you don't change the name to New York, we're going to fight you. Which they then
Well,
changed.
not only that, the French went up to Canada. I don't know a lot about American history, but why did they do that? Why did they? It's like, yeah, we'll keep this small bit, and you have that bit down there.
And the fact he said a lot of the buildings were very European-like.
I mean, I'm sure Americans know the history of that, but I don't.
But anyway, we just wanted to point this out to you. Gillian, thank you so much for helping me make this video. And goodbye from
You're
us.
welcome.